This is Crime Talk. Thanks for joining us for our Tuesday night live show. We'll be here with you for about the next hour or so. And please tell a friend. If you haven't done so already, subscribe, hit that like button, and leave us a comment. And if you have a question, we're going to do our best to answer all the questions that come in. Certainly we'll be doing our best, that's for sure. But sometimes those comments go flying by, that's for sure. So for those of you who don't know me, maybe it's your first time here, my name is Scott Reich. I'm a practicing criminal defense attorney and have been doing this for some 26 years. Can't believe that. It goes by so fast. And we started this show almost 3 years ago, I guess, when the whole Chris Watts matter started up. And it was really out of frustration that I did it, because I just couldn't, have a hair on my thing here, just couldn't, it was so frustrating watching the evening news and hearing the people on the news trying to explain what was going on in the process, and they were just getting it all wrong. It's so frustrating. And not saying that people, you have to be a lawyer to be able to talk about this stuff. That's not true. But let's at least try to get it somewhat accurate. So we started that. I've been doing this. First, it was maybe one show a week, one every 2 weeks. Just kind of depended. Then we kind of jumped in with 2 feet. And then we've been trying to do a daily show, at least Monday through Friday, for, at least a year and a half or so. So we've been doing that. And, trying to keep up on that is pretty good. And tonight we have Frank behind the camera, the hardest working man in show business, who probably should be home with his new child that's, 3 days old, I guess, 4 days old? 4 days old. But fortunately, the child is in good hands. And Frank is here, so we appreciate that as well. Julie, still out a little under the weather. She should be back here hopefully next week as well. And boy, man, it's just been a busy couple of weeks. A lot of stuff going on in the news out there. A lot of stuff going on in my practice as well. What can I say? When it rains, it pours, which is, a good thing, but that usually means, obviously people have been arrested or, unfortunately, since we do a lot of, what am I trying to say? Violent crimes, defense of that usually means there's also seriously deceased or seriously injured or deceased individuals. And it's been a busy couple of weeks. That's for sure. I don't know if it's just the times we live in or what, but it seems like, what's the word I'm looking for? So I don't try not to offend anybody, but no matter what I say, I'm going to offend somebody. That's the one thing I've learned doing this show. It's the world's just going crazy. I don't know how else to explain it. I really don't know what else to say. I think COVID has completely, always completely messed up. So, it's already gone today. Nobody's seen Brian. Okay. See, God, I was looking out of the corner of my eye, another monitor here, and somebody saying, "Oh, Scott, you suck, Scott. Oh, you can't believe you said that." No matter what I say, somebody's going to not like it. That's for sure. So what can you do? I want to thank everybody for being here. Appreciate it that you are here. I know you have other things that you could be doing. So the fact that you take your time to join us, we greatly appreciate it. So that's who I am. That's what I do. Listen, I'm going to tell you, just like I would tell a client when I talk to them about a case, I'm going to tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly of the case so the client can make the best decision. Now, if facts change, new information comes in, then my analysis may in fact change. Bottom line, just like real life. And just like here, when I give my analysis of a case or my opinion of what should be done. Obviously, sometimes we have limited facts, so try to break down those facts, the procedures, and explain what's going on from the perspective. But as things change, my opinion may change. Okay, it's that simple, and that's the reality of life. Particularly in a criminal case, I have cases that you thought, oh, this is going to be a great case, and it turns out to be the biggest, piece of crap you've ever seen in your life. Other cases, you think, wow, I'm not going to have much to work with. This is terrible. And then the next thing you know, you find a great piece of information, and the whole case completely changes. So you just have to kind of wait and see. And yes, we have certain facts, and we like to stick to the facts. Why? Well, one, we don't want to get sued by accusing people of doing things that we can't prove. And second, we want to get it right, at least most of the time. And I don't know what my percentage is, but I think I've called it pretty correctly on most of the cases where I've gone out and said, oh, I think they're going to be convicted. I think they're going to, not guilty. What's going to happen? And not that I am some genius, okay? But the reality of it is I've been doing this job, this career for 26 years, okay? You learn a little bit about human nature. And most of the time, people are going to act the way they do. And yes, past performance is indicative of future results, right? If somebody has failed every time they've ever been placed on probation or supervision when they get out of prison and they screw it up, I can probably guarantee, usually unless the person just gets so old or they're tired of going to prison, that they're probably going to mess it up again. And not trying to be a pessimist, but I got to be a realist, right? I mean, let's face it, you got to be. And as we've said this before here on Crime Talk, we like to talk about the elephant in the room. That's the one thing I love about my job is we get to ask the elephant in the room question. And everybody wants to know that question or the answer to the question. Well, why shouldn't we ask it? That's what our job is to do. We're looking for the truth, right? The facts. And, I tell a jury when I'm picking them, listen, I'm trying to pick the best jury I can. The prosecution's trying to pick the best jury they can. But I have a duty to my client to get the best jury I can, one that's going to be fair and impartial. I'm not looking for politically correct, right? If you think my client's guilty, he's accused of something, you can't be fair and impartial, let me know. Guess what? We got plenty of jurors. And so that's the way it is. I think in today's world, we've become so hypersensitive of offending anyone that nobody can ask a question without being canceled or, worried about getting canceled. You can ask the question as long as, and the answer, let's hope we're getting the truth, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Ask the question. Not everybody always, tells the truth. You'd be surprised. One thing I've learned a lot, like when a witness goes up on the witness stand, it is not some great truth-seeking chair where suddenly, they're injected with some sort of, great light comes down and says, I'm going to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. People lie on the witness stand, okay? You know what the greatest truth-seeking tool ever created? It's called cross-examination, right? But you got to have somebody on the other side that's going to make somebody answer the question, like the judge, right? If it's assuming it's a legal and proper question. I had a case, I swear to God, true story, case months ago. And the complaining witness is up on the stand, and she told her story on direct examination, little softball questions, nobody, saying anything. And I got up and said, okay, you've said this statement, but you said this statement. And isn't it true? You're fabricating this entire story because you're angry, upset, blah, 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 blah. And the witness said, yes. Yes, it's true. Yeah. It's one of those Perry Mason type of moments, right? And it's one of those like, okay, like, what are we doing here now? She just admitted she made the whole thing up. And then the district attorney gets up and act like, he tricked you, right? He tricked you. No. I mean, were you telling the truth? Did you understand his question? Yes, I did. Right? And it's just like, why? You're wondering, why are we here? Because the jury came back not guilty. My client's looking at spending the rest of his life in prison. And yet, here we were 8 months into it at trial, where somebody finally asked a hard-hitting question instead of saying, tell me where the bad man did something, right? Ask the questions that the defense guy is going to ask, right? Come on. But that's the problem with America today, is that nobody wants to ask the real hard-hitting questions, and it just absolutely drives me nuts. And in my business, we have to ask these questions. Why? Because people's liberty is at stake. Okay? And yes, if they did the crime, they're more than likely going to be found guilty. But if they didn't do it, we have just as much right to make sure that the system is working and that the not guilty are in fact found not guilty. So, all right, let's get back to it. Let's start taking a look at some of the questions here. All right, now obviously we have a couple of things we can talk about here. Obviously, big news today. The coroner came out in regards to the Gabby Petito matter. Obviously, the cause of death was homicide, which simply means death by another person. The manner of death was strangulation. So there you go. I mean, strangulation. Strangulation just doesn't happen real fast. All right, people can black out. I've had experts on strangulation cases. Somebody is actually. I mean, and I've said this before. You want to talk about after deliberation? You talk strangulation. Okay, now somebody could pass out relatively quickly if they're being choked, right? Let's face it, they can pass out. But to actually kill them, okay? I've had multiple doctors because I had this case once, and I mean, we're talking 5-6 minutes to actually to the point where somebody is strangled to death. It's not strangled. They're strangled and they're asphyxiated, so to speak. I'm sure somebody's saying I'm using the wrong words, but you get the point, right? It's not instantaneous. And, I've always said strangulation, you're more than likely looking at the other person and you're there watching their life fade right before your very eyes, and you're thinking about it, right? It's not like where somebody discharges a firearm and, I didn't know it was going to kill him. Oh, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. Strangulation, you're usually on top of them, looking at them, strangling them, watching their life fade away. It's not an instantaneous thing. Strangulation is the definition of after deliberation, when it comes to first degree murder. Okay. So we got the Gabby Petito case. We got like that. Obviously, Brian Laundrie still not found. Here we are a month into it. And yes, I'll mention it again. And even in today's video, we mentioned it. Everyone said, I'm not sure why Dog the Bounty Hunter's there. I think it's a publicity stunt. And everyone's like, Scott, what are you doing? Why are you beating up on the dog? I'm not beating up a dog. I just think it's kind of weird. The guy leaves his honeymoon early to go help on this case. And I'm like, hey, that's great. And if Dog the Bounty Hunter finds Brian Laundrie, I will be the first person to say, wow, I was wrong. And then news came out that, coincidentally, he just happened to get a few calls regarding maybe a new show because of, his involvement in the Brian Laundrie case. And I'm like, wow, that's great. And he's even donated $10,000 to the fund, so to speak, that would lead to a tip and the arrest of Brian Laundrie. And nothing's found. Okay. Neither the law enforcement, FBI, local authorities have been able to find Brian Laundrie. So, maybe it's not unusual that the dog wouldn't be able to find him. But then he said, hey, I injured myself. I'm leaving Florida. Going to probably return back here to Colorado simply for the fact that, I got to recover. But he's still going to have people there, I guess. Or he's looking to raise money to help fund people to search for Brian Laundrie. And I said, publicity stunt or what? I don't know. You all tell me. But I'm not trying to say I told you so. But like I said, one thing I've learned about this job is human nature. All right? Human nature. And I hate to say it because usually it sounds pretty damn cynical, but that's just the way it is. I wish the dog well when it comes to a speedy recovery with his ankle so he can recuperate and get right back there to Florida and start trudging through those swamps and continue looking for him. So we'll just have to wait and see. Maybe he'll be back there in a couple weeks. Hopefully, it's just a little ice on the ankle. And it'll be good. Wish him well. Hopefully everything works out just fine. And if not, hopefully the crew's down there, all those other family members are down there looking for him. As I said several weeks ago, we'll see how long this lasts because, looking for somebody obviously takes time. And if you're working on that, you're not working on other things that are making money. So we'll just have to, wait and see how things worked out. The other thing I think is interesting is that there was another report that while they were searching for Brian Laundrie in one of the nature preserves down there, is they found another body that was involved in another investigation, not related to this in any way. And then they found another missing person there in the Teton National Forest. I think that gentleman, they determined he had committed suicide, but they, found his body. And I thought, wow, people, you hear about people disappearing all the time. And there's so much vast open space, throughout this country in wooded areas and things like that, and in the mountains. And so it's just, think about it. It's kind of scary. Here we are, we've just start looking, and for some other cases, we find all these other bodies out there, which, when people disappear, it makes you wonder, where the hell did they go, obviously, right? Well, probably out there in the middle of nowhere, which is, sad for them, their families. They don't get the right to have an appropriate burial or something along those lines. So, we can talk about that as well. And if anybody has any, listen, there's no wrong answer as it relates to where is Brian Laundrie, right? There's no bad answer because let's face it, nobody knows exactly where he is, except maybe the parents. Okay. I just think it's a little skeptical. The whole world's looking for Brian Laundrie, and his parents are just hanging out at home, right? It's kind of like that old joke, so to speak, where the defendant's on trial, for a homicide case, and the witness is on the stand, and the attorney is going to say, but you never found a body. You can't say that they're not alive. And in the next 30 seconds, the victim is going to walk through those doors, and everybody looks, and nobody walks through the door. But on closing argument, the defense attorney gets up and says, ladies and gentlemen, you all look, that's reasonable doubt. And the jury comes back and they convict the client. And the attorneys talking to the jury afterwards and said, but you all looked, everybody looked to see if the victim was going to walk into the courtroom through those doors at that very moment. And the foreperson said, yeah, we all looked, but your client didn't, because he knew she wasn't coming back, right? And the Laundrie family, if your son or your daughter were missing, regardless of whether the police were engaging in a manhunt and you knew that there were going to be charges coming your way, you'd be out there looking for him. You know, Brian, where are you? Brian, come home, right? But they didn't. It's almost like they knew he's not coming home. It's almost like they knew maybe they're not looking in the right spot. He had a 4-day lead, ladies and gentlemen. You got that kind of lead. You're in Florida, near the water. Can you say the Caribbean? Can you say Cuba? Right? Even living in a communist hellhole like Cuba was probably still better than living in prison, right? That's what some people would think. I would think so. So why not go there? I mean, it just strikes me as something interesting that the parents weren't out there. And then when they needed his help, well, why don't you show us exactly where you think they may be, or they think they found something, and it turned out to be nothing. So, I mean, he literally could be anywhere. Looking here at the comments here, EC Little, no way I could be stopped from searching for your child. You would be out there doing that, right? And they're sitting at home, occasionally going out for dinner, ordering in food, hanging out. Got to stay here by the phone, right? Like, who's going to call the home phone? Probably nobody. Take your cell phone, right? Brian, if he's going to call, he'll call on the cell phone. They just seem very nonchalant, almost as if they know he's okay. Now, do I have any facts to support that? No, just my observation, okay? I've had clients that have disappeared, failed to appear. Some of them, they said, hey, I may not be there. Okay, well, I have to remind you, as an officer of the court, you need to make all court appearances and show up. And, just remember that. You have to tell the clients. And some of them are like, okay, I get it. Good talking to you. And they don't show up. And, the family that's been at every court appearance suddenly doesn't show up to that court appearance. Oh my gosh, like, where could he be? I don't know. Because they knew that the person wasn't going to be there. So I'm just saying, not that I know the answer, and I don't want to, this is from experience, okay? Just from experience. And then we also have, obviously, the Lori Vallow matter. The judge Judge Boyce ruled yesterday that the change of venue has been granted. The final location is not set, but it sounded like it's probably going to Boise. And why do they want to go to Boise? It sounds like it's the largest jury pool population that they, can pool from, that they can pull from the jury pool, which makes sense. I mean, I thought the judge perhaps would wait and see, and he basically said, hey, of course, all the juries in Fremont County would be great jurors, but this is no ordinary case, all the publicity, et cetera, so let's take it to a bigger jurisdiction and just make sure we get a fair trial. And, a couple of things I've noticed on the Lori Vallow case quite recently is, first, where's Mark Means? I don't know. Maybe he's out looking for Brian Laundrie. I don't know. He hasn't been at the last 2 or 3 hearings where the new defense attorney has joined in, at least observed visually. God, why don't I can't think of his name all of a sudden? James. James Archibald. Thank you, Frank. That's why Frank is here. Frank remembers everything. So that's, Mr. Means seems to have disappeared, faded away, so to speak. Now, once again, we know that Mark Means had become very, very concerned about Lori Vallow's treatment. As you may recall, he wanted to be intimately involved in her restoration back to competency. And like I said, I am not a psychiatrist. I am not a psychologist. I am not a psychiatric nurse in any way. But the more that I have been able to watch the videos that we put up in regards to the Chandler, Arizona incident regarding the death of Charles Vallow by Lori Vallow's brother, Alex Cox, and the family's interviews where they're all saying she's crazy. Like she's got some weird beliefs. This is all when your own family's saying, God, I think they were going to kill her. You really got to wonder, right? And, take a look at that video where her interview, I mean, like, what the heck? And this woman's, finds out that the father of her children, at least I think two of them, has died, been shot by her brother, and she grabs his phone and then goes to Burger King. Are you kidding me? Maybe a couple of crocodile tears in that interview, I think, when the detective left. But that's about it, man. But and I'm just, I hate to speculate. I really do. But I'm not sure that we're going to see Lori Vallow restored to competency anytime soon. Okay? And there are just some people that, for whatever reason, whether they started off that way in life or something happened and they just truly, and I'm not trying to be critical in any way. There's so many people with mental health issues. I mean, I've been dealing with this for years for clients, and so many problems could be solved if we actually addressed and talked about mental health issues, and there wasn't a stigma, less and less of it these days. But there's so many people that go out there and they self-medicate because of the drugs or because of a mental health issue, and for whatever reason, and oftentimes it leads to crime. Let's face it, right? That's the elephant in the room. Like what keeps causing all these issues? I don't know. We talked about in today's show the Alyssa guy, the shooter up in Boulder, Colorado. The guy is found not to be competent. Now the prosecution wants another evaluation. Okay, and my guess is the second evaluation is going to come back that he is not competent. Okay, the family said he had mental health issues, extreme paranoia, probably bipolar, right? I mean, there's mental health issues there. The scary thing is that he was allowed to go buy a gun. But we still live in America where, hey, if you meet the qualifications, you can do that. And we're not going to send somebody, I don't foresee it, but, who does the responsibility fall upon? The doctors can't go around reporting people unless they actually say they're going to have a problem. If you get people in trouble by them going to the doctor, take away their civil liberties without due process, you got a problem there. But maybe the families are the ones that, need to step up and say, hey, we need to get this individual some serious help because they're going to hurt somebody or they're going to hurt themselves. So I don't know the answers. I really don't. But man, it just gets more and more frustrating. So I don't think we're going to see Lori Vallow in the courtroom anytime soon. I think it's interesting that Mark Means has kind of fallen off the radar, which begs the question. He had that case for over a year, At some point, he finally raised the issue of competency. But he was always saying, I'm trying to meet with my client. I'm trying to meet with my client. She's, and all the family members, have this thing where she thinks that she's, what's the word I'm looking for? She was like this goddess, and basically the rules didn't apply to her, and all this weird talk. I would think that would have come out during the initial conversations, right? And I would think an experienced criminal defense attorney would be like, whoa, nothing personal, but we gotta comp this person. We gotta have a competency evaluation done. But over a year, wow. And don't get me wrong, there's some cases like, wow, close call. I'm not sure. Let's see how things shake out. But over a year, I mean, maybe you couldn't do it in the first visit. Maybe the second, you got a little concern. Maybe you bring somebody else. So, yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know. And I got some people criticize me for being critical of Mark Means, right? And there was a couple of things that said, hey, he did fine. I get it. I understand why he's doing it. John Pryor, I think he's, frankly, some people think, he's so rude, he's so arrogant. From a criminal defense perspective, you may not like his style, but I don't think that he's done anything that is like shocking or alarming to me. He did a really good job at the preliminary hearing. He's managed to get the case moved out of the county in which it's charged. Tell me what John Pryor is done poorly. He always has his client dressed up in a nice little white shirt with a tie on. Makes him look presentable. Makes him look human. But a lot of these Chandler, Arizona documents that we put up for our Patreon people, these text messages where the two of them. I mean, if anyone thinks these two were not intimately involved before the death of Tammy Daybell, you're just naive, okay? I said this early on. Here you got this guy, midlife crisis, whatever you want to call it. Kids are grown. He and his wife are there. Meets this, attractive woman. She rocks his world. And, this little novel that he was writing that was, these text messages. This dude was infatuated with her to the nth degree, to the point where he, for lack of a better term, is accused, because I'm not going to use it, he hasn't been found guilty. He's been accused of, killing his wife for financial gain, remuneration, as it's alleged in the indictments. Basically killed her for the money. So it's the kind of thing where it's like, wow, man. It just shows you, like I said, Chad Daybell, middle-aged guy, just kind of going about his business. Next thing you know, he's involved in this multi-person death ring that just happens to be taking place around him. Like, what are the odds? This woman is a black widow. I've said this before, and it was kind of jokingly. You noticed he never really argued for bond? Probably because he figured he's safer in custody than out, because, my God, Lori Vallow, everyone around her winds up dead. Who knows? Maybe that's where Mark Means is. Maybe she got him. No, I'm just kidding. I don't want to speculate. That would be, not even, it's not even funny, Scott. You know better. But, he's gone. Maybe he woke up and said, this is crazy. So we'll see. Mr. Archibald's on his case now, an experienced attorney from all that I have seen. So we'll see if she's ever restored to competency. We talked about it today in the Boulder case. All they have to be able to show is that you're familiar. You know what the charges are. You know why you're there in court. You know the roles of the judge, the prosecutor, the defense attorney, possible penalties. That's it for competency. That is a pretty low standard, unless, of course, you're so delusional that you just have no real grasp of reality, okay? And I have seen that where people, you walking down the street, you would not think they, what does somebody with a mental health issue look like? I think we maybe mentioned this before. I think most people think of, the homeless guy, dirty, long hair, rummaging through the trash can or something along those lines, look like a homeless person. No. What does somebody with a mental health issue look like? No. They can be high functioning. You wouldn't know that they had an issue at all. And, but they have some beliefs that, they're somehow exempt and there's some sort of goddess, say, for example, and everything is that's just the way it is. And they truly believe it. And that's where you get into not competent at all. So, there's lots of other stuff we can talk about here, but those are the things that obviously does it. Let's take a look at some of the comments here. Christine Ewing, CNBC had a written report from the coroner, says it's a manual strangulation. He did it with his hands, allegedly. And if he in fact did that, like I said, that's the epitome of, why did that go disappear? That is the epitome of after deliberation. Competent enough to call for a life insurance claim. I understand. Good question. Spivey, I think I got that right. Please explain the difference between speculation and evidence in the law and explain why a person has the right to remain silent, guilt or innocence. Please explain our rights to remain silent. Okay. Great question. What's the difference between speculation and evidence? Well, in a court of law, witnesses can only testify as to personal knowledge that they have. They can't say, they can only testify as to what they saw, what they personally observed, what they heard, their observations. Sometimes they can testify as to what other people said, but for the most part, that would be hearsay. If you want somebody to testify as to what they said, they have to come to court and testify. So if there's a question that says, well, you're not aware of what took place, and no, I have no personal knowledge of it. If you have no personal knowledge of it, it's speculation, okay? And you have to be able to establish that the person had personal knowledge of it. Okay, there's an allegation of a shooting. Were you there? You have to lay the foundation. Yes, I was there. Did you see who was there? Yes, I did. Okay. They can't say, well, I wasn't there at all, but I heard. Well, that'd be hearsay, out of court statements by another being offered for the truth of the matter asserted. It's hearsay, inadmissible. That person has to come to court and testify and be subject to cross-examination, the greatest truth-seeking tool ever invented. Okay? So that's you have to have personal knowledge to be able to actually testify. That's evidence. What you saw is evidence. What you heard is evidence. If you didn't see it, feel it, observe it, listen to it, guess what? You have no personal knowledge of it, and you really why are you here, right? That's bottom line. So then you have, explain a person why has a right to remain silent, okay? Well, it's in the Constitution. You have the Fifth Amendment guarantee of right to remain silent. Our Constitution, and remember this, ladies and gentlemen, and it just absolutely flabbergasts me that people are like, wow, I can't believe, this is going on. People exercising their rights and getting lawyers, they're just guilty. It's in the Constitution of the United States of America. The whole framework of how the country's supposed to work. And those first 10 amendments, they're pretty important. They're called the Bill of Rights, the rights that you have, the rights that you can't give up unless you knowingly, voluntarily waive those rights and give them up. And why would anybody give up a right unless basically they're getting the benefit of a bargain out of it? You wouldn't do it. Like people like, I mean, there's people, I've seen people who are like, we should get rid of the First Amendment because people, they talk about the First Amendment and, you know, they hurt people's feelings. Okay, well, first of all, it only applies to the government, right? There's a remedy if you say false things about other people. You can sue them for, you know, when they write down libelous and when they speak something, slander, if it's not true. And there's an exception to that if they're public figures and things of that nature. But the press, right? The government cannot inhibit your freedom of religion, your right of assembly, petition the government, free press, right? I mean, could you imagine if somebody said you could no longer practice your religion? You would think everybody that practiced religion on a regular basis would be completely outraged. You would think the people that didn't practice religion on a regular basis would be outraged. But so many people aren't. It's absolutely terrifying to me, right? Your First Amendment, your Second Amendment rights, right? Third Amendment, not used very much, but it was pretty high up there on the list. Why? That's the whole quartering of troops in your house, right? They can't take over your house for troops to feed them and house them. That was a big deal back then. Why? That's what the king did when he sent troops over here to America. We're taking over your house. We're going to put the troops in here. We're going to take your cattle. We're going to eat your food. They didn't put it up there number 3 at that point because, you know, it's not relevant today. Thank God, right? But the reality of it, it was a big deal back then. People wanted their freedom of press because the king would say, we don't like what you're saying about me, so we're going to shut down the press. People said, no, that's not right. You can't do that. The king would say, I don't like your religion, so you can't practice it. America was founded on freedom of religion, freedom of speech, right? You criticize the king, he would come and throw you in jail, ladies and gentlemen. Constitutional right. And yet there are people out there that want to give it up. Fourth Amendment, your right to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures. Once again, why so high up on that list? Because that's what they were afraid of. Let's face it, the Constitution is a limit on the government. The first 10 amendments are limits on the government. The Constitution, the original articles, right? They say this is what the government's role is. First 10 amendments, these are the things the government can't do. They can't come rummaging through your house because the king doesn't like you, looking for something that may be illegal. They can't go searching through your phone these days till they find something and think, oh, look, it's illegal. You have a right to that. Fifth Amendment, right to remain silent, right? The king used to make you speak against yourself because he wanted, make it easy, right? You have a right to remain silent. Due process of law, right? The government cannot take your life, your liberty, or your property without due process of law. Why? Because that's what the king would do. He'd come in and say, I don't like you, whack your head off, shoot you, whatever, hang you from the highest tree. He took your life. There's like, hey, we understand every now and then the king's going to have to kill a couple of people, but let's at least do it fairly and make sure it's a fair process, a fair trial, okay? We're not going to force somebody to be a witness against themselves, right? Due process of law. It's condemnation, right? Why is that there? When the government says we want to take your house to build a big highway through there, you got to pay them. Fair compensation. Due process of law. The king just doesn't get to come take your house because he wants to, ladies and gentlemen. So the Fifth Amendment, right? Sixth Amendment, right to an attorney. Because the king didn't always let you have somebody come be your mouthpiece and represent you. And you think, oh, what does it matter? If I didn't do anything wrong, what do I need an attorney for? You'd be surprised how many people hate public speaking, ladies and gentlemen. You'd be surprised how many people freeze up when they actually have to talk themselves in front of people. All right. I saw a thing, it was a survey once of people. And you know what their greatest fear that people had? Public speaking. All right. The fear of public speaking came in higher than death. Okay. One of the reasons why you want somebody obviously to speak for you, hopefully trained in the law, but also they can get up and speak articulately and get the point across in very clear and concise ways to be an advocate for the defendant, right? Eighth Amendment, cruel and unusual punishment, right? We don't want people being, quartered by horses, pulled apart from limb to limb, because why? That's what the king did, okay? The founding fathers, ladies and gentlemen, were not huge advocates of like a strong and powerful government. That's why we have the 10th Amendment, right? Those things not specifically enumerated in the Constitution are specifically reserved to the states because they know that people will always want power. It's just human nature. And power, the old thing, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So remember that, ladies and gentlemen, when you say, I can't believe that somebody as guilty as him gets to go to court and have an attorney and going to make the prosecution put a trial on. Remember, it's a constitutional right, okay? Remember that. And remember someday, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope it's not you and I hope it's not your family member or even your close family friend, but the reality of it is sometime throughout your life, you, a family member, a kid, a grandkid, may need a criminal defense attorney because he or she has got himself into a situation that wasn't probably the best judgment or the best decision they may have ever made, or a close friend, okay? So bottom line is, don't sit there and be this righteous indignation. I would never need anything and I have nothing to hide from the government. No, the point is, why would you let the government do anything without their right? Because remember, ladies and gentlemen, remember this, and I've said this many times before, and I will say it again. Nobody in the government gets up and said, you know what? I think we have just have too much power. We need to give it back to the people. Nobody does that. And I'm talking, I don't care what political party, if you're in power, you only have one goal, and that's to stay in power, okay? And I've said this again, I'll say it again. This is me speaking for me. But listen, if you are a career politician, I don't care what party you are from, if you are there that more than, say, 4 years, 6 years at the most, okay, and you're part of a criminal enterprise, okay? That's all you are. You're part of a criminal enterprise. That's it. Nobody spends millions and millions of dollars to get elected to a job in the state that pays $30,000, maybe $50,000 a year for a part-time gig. You go to Congress, what do they make? $184,000, but yet they spend millions of dollars. Why would you spend millions of dollars on a $180,000 a year job? Well, unless you thought you were going to get rich in the position, would you want that position so badly, right? Hey, and I've said this and I'll say it again. When my clients have to go do public service, which I think if you're going to be a member of, the government, my clients have to pay to do public service. They have to buy an insurance policy so in case they slip and fall on the job. They don't pay. I pay a politician $1 a year. And if they have any money that comes in, where's it coming from? Okay. I want people that don't want or need the money. Or you have to change it and say, fine, you can take money from somebody, but guess what? When any legislation comes up that affects that particular individual or group or company, you can't vote on it, right? Just like judges, they can't take a case if they or their family member has any interest in a case, right? There was a big article in the Wall Street Journal. 131 federal judges broke the law by hearing cases where they had a financial interest in the case, because there was a law that went into effect back in the 70s after Watergate that basically said that no judge can hear a case in which they have a financial interest or their family. So if we can do it for judges, we can do it for people in the legislature as well. But they're not going to change the law themselves, because then they're going to stop the money train. So, all right. Just remember that, ladies and gentlemen. Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. It's a constitutional right. And you have a right to exercise that. Everybody does. So we'll just leave that there for that. Okay? Let's take a look at some of these other questions. Does things that are out of this world. If Lori thought death is nothing, she wouldn't be scared and competent to stand trial. Well, I'm not really sure it's up to her. And remember, the people that are finding her not to be competent, they have no skin in the game here, so to speak. They're just third-party professionals. They're not getting paid by the prosecution or the defense, but they're simply saying, hey, this lady's not well. She's not well. Okay. I get it, people. Let's face it, the evidence looks pretty overwhelming as it relates to her involvement in the death of JJ and Ty Lee. I get that. But, that pesky Constitution is that we have to give them due process of law. Well, one of the things is you have to be able to understand and truly appreciate what's going on. So let's see here. A couple other questions here. So I always like the ones, do not consent. Yeah, and then we talked about this the other day. I swear to God. Nowhere, anywhere in the Miranda warnings is that in the Constitution. Nowhere does it says you have a right to remain, yes, you have a right to remain silent. But nowhere is it said you have a right to remain silent. You can say it can be used against you if you can't afford it. Completely made up by the United States Supreme Court, right? They made that up. And they had an opportunity to make it go away a couple of years ago, and the Supreme Court said, hey, we're not going to be the ones to take it away. We're not going to look like the bad guys here. But everyone that talks to the police, right, and the police only have to advise you of your Miranda rights. And I get this question all the time, ladies and gentlemen. You only have to be advised of your Miranda rights if you are in custody and they're interrogating you about the subject in which they are the subject of a crime. And you can be not shackled and still be in custody. The standard is, would the defendant believe that he was free to go? If they say, stand over there, don't move, you may be technically in custody, right? Depends on a lot of circumstances. What was the tone of voice? Could you move? Could you leave? Could you just walk away? If you can walk away, you're not under arrest. But if you're in custody and they start carrying, then they have to advise you. And yet people still talk. The Supreme Court has basically said, if you talk, guess what? You deserve to be convicted. Bottom line. So, yeah. Your opinion on the vaccine mandates, please. Well, probably going to get in a lot of trouble here. Boy. And I'll tell everyone, I got COVID last November. Worst 2 weeks of my life. Okay. In 21 years in private practice, up to that point, I had missed 2 days of work because of illness. And I usually didn't feel well. And I left like midday and it was like on a Friday. So I didn't feel like I missed a whole lot of work. 2 days. We'll count it 2 days. Up until COVID knocked me out for 2 weeks straight, ladies and gentlemen. Kicked my butt. Worst. I've never been so sick in my life. And I got the vaccine. And I got sick for a day. But that day was a heck of a lot better than 2 weeks, I assure you of that. Got both shots, got sick both times afterwards. But But the mandates, I'll probably get in trouble. I don't understand under what authority the president can mandate anything, saying somebody has to get a particular medical treatment. Maybe for people in the military, commander-in-chief, they can say it. Goes to troop readiness. I understand it, the whole mandate thing as it relates to companies. It's some OSHA regulation that you're going to put people in danger if they're not vaccinated, which kind of goes back to the whole thing of, well, if the people are vaccinated, what do they have to worry about from somebody who's not? Okay, well, maybe it's going to put a strain on the hospital system. Okay. But remember when we built all those hospitals? I mean, heck, they built a whole hospital early on here at the convention center in Colorado, and they never used it, right? I haven't heard, at least where I am, where people have been, they're turning people away. I mean, they're getting the treatment. And frankly, I mean, everybody's, I'm sure, known somebody that's had a breakthrough case, and the people that I know who've had a breakthrough case didn't have COVID. And, I saw something that if you had COVID, your immunity went up, but they still recommend that you get the vaccine. Okay. You can, and I'm very, you want to take the risk, that's great, right? Like anything in life. You want to ride without a motorcycle, knock yourself out. But when you crack your head against the ground and it cracks open like a little peanut, don't expect me to pay for it, right? You take those risks. You don't want to get the vaccine? That's fine. I don't care. Like I said, I had it, so I think I've got some natural immunity. I got the vaccine, but if you don't want to do it, that's fine with me. It is what it is. But people, so I'm sure I'm probably upset a lot of people about that. Cat's crazy life. Leave the dog alone, please. He's caught 10,000. Okay. I mean, he's been a bounty hunter for lots and lots of years. I have friends that are bounty hunters. They get a percentage of the bond. It's like working on a contingency fee basis. You don't get paid until they do, so to speak. Okay, that's fine. I'm just saying it looked a little suspicious that he happened to show up looking for Brian Laundrie, and as soon as basically the trail went cold, he's out of there. I mean, I wish him well. I hope his ankle heals, and we'll see. Let me know. Like I said, if he finds him, I'll be the first one to apologize. But I think it was a publicity stunt. Okay, there, we've said it. I thought it was a publicity stunt. I think I've got some facts to back that up. He goes down there. I'm hunting. He goes down. He finds nothing. He thinks we found the place. I'll have him in custody I'll have him within the next day. Okay, I'm waiting. Now I'm thinking, I'm going to have to say, I'm sorry, the dog found him. Then all of a sudden you get the news that he's getting, ads coming in. Okay. And then he donated $10,000. I thought the dog had a bunch of money. Somebody said, no, he was broke. I don't know. I mean, what do you do with all that money from the reality TV shows? Okay. And one thing I know about reality TV shows, they're anything but reality. They're staged. They know what they're looking for. They know where the people are. It's so staged. So it's a lot easier when you know where you're going to find the people. All right, we'll just leave it at that. Hey, I wish dog well. I don't mean him any ill will, but like I said, it's the elephant in the room. Isn't that convenient? He got what he was looking for, a little publicity, didn't find it. Says he's going to do it. Boy, that sounds expensive. And if he's broke, it sounds even more expensive. But I hope after, if his ankle heals up, that apparently he hurt, and I take him at his word that he's injured, that he'll be back there looking for Brian and taking those tips. So we'll see. Let's see. 10,000 people is a joke. If he caught that many people, it means he caught someone every day of the year for 27 years. I agree. That doesn't make sense. See, but those are facts, right? Let's see. It's really bad neurological nature. I was curious about chemical. Okay, I don't know what that means. I ICU nurse, this is from Nicole. I'm just reading the comments here. ICU nurse manager said, unvaccinated are bouncing back quicker than vaccinated. Just saying, check antibodies through blood work, hospital. And I'm telling you, this is no secret. I've mentioned this before. I have an attorney here in my office, double vaccinated, got COVID, was out for a month, a week in the hospital, another week at home on oxygen. I don't know. And I've got people that have been in the office, aren't vaccinated. You know, they think they got COVID, tested negative, but they think they had it. And they were out 3 days. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. And my experiences is just anecdotal. All I know is I don't want to get it again because it sucked, right? My son compared it to, it felt like I had a hangover for about 3 days. My daughter, who's a nurse practitioner, she was like, Dad, I tested positive for the antibodies. I didn't even know I was sick. So I don't know. Each person is different. Like all things in life, it's a personal decision between you and your doctor. What's the best thing for you? One thing I've figured out over the years is there's usually no right, there's white and black answer, just there's this and there's bad. There's always a gray area, and people got to do what works for them. Okay, as you get older, you start realizing that what works for person group A isn't going to work for groups B, C, and D. They're going to need to be a little different. And when you start mandating, you must do this. I mean, frankly, I think it's just a little scary, ladies and gentlemen. It sounds like central planning, from some communist country or something. I mean, it sounds like crap they do in like China. It's just scary. What country say, Frank? No. Yeah, I mean, it's one day this is the way to, okay, under what authority do you have the power to do that? An OSHA regulation? Well, I don't know. Don't you have to, before you can pass a regulation, you have to hold public comment and publish stuff in what do they call it? The code of, it's the book that gets published with all the comments and the dates that you're going to have it. I don't know. We'll see if people challenge it. I don't know. Let's see. Yes, makes it more worthwhile your money for the capture. Yeah, thanks. Wow, 1,500 people watching. Thanks, everybody, for doing that. Make sure you share it with a friend. Martha says, so glad I got the vax. Have a huge sense of freedom. Still wear a mask, but the basic worries are gone. Enjoy going out. And I went to see a client the other day. You take your precautions. Usually I have my little mask in here because if you go into a building, you got to wear it. Hey, you want me to wear a mask? I get it. Like I said, I just don't want to get sick again. I go to the jail the other day to see a client. I go through all this, fill out the paperwork. Have you been exposed to somebody? No. They take your temperature. They send me down to the pod to see the client. And I see him. I'm like, dude, you look like crap. Did I just wake you up? Oh, man, I think I got COVID. I'm like, stop right there. Stop. And, I go back outside. I'd like to change my little form paperwork there. I've just been exposed to somebody with COVID. I mean, what the heck? It is what it is. So I don't know the answer. You got to do what works for you. There's no one right answer for everyone. We've all known people that don't get their kids vaccinated, whatever. I got vaccinated as a kid. I got my kids vaccinated. But if that's what they want to do, not get vaccinated, that's not my problem. And then, of course, you start thinking, well, if I'm vaccinated and I can still carry it, can I get them not vaccinated? Aren't they going to get them sick? Yeah, because apparently you can be vaccinated, still carry it, maybe not have any symptoms, which is okay, so they get it. So then they're going to get natural immunities. But why should I be worried if I've been vaccinated, right? Or maybe they're not telling me everything. Maybe it's not as efficient as they said it was going to be, as effective as they said it was going to be. Oh my gosh, did they lie to me? No way, because the government never lies about anything, right? If you can't trust the government, who can you trust? Yeah, so you got to do what's right for you. Sandra, it was nasty. I'm telling you, worst 2 weeks of my life. Worst 2 weeks of my life. Don't want to do it again. Suffocated is different than strangling. Yes, you're right. Strangulation, but, because of the suffocate. Yes, you're right. Let's see here. Sit and spit grin. And those were studied. This one is persona. Yeah, and I get it. The formula for manufacturing consent is so insidious, quite alarming. I'm telling you, let's see, Spivey, I'm an RN, and you'd be amazed at the evidence that they're actually releasing. We're seeing more and more people that have been vaccinated that are contracting the virus for a second time, but it's not being reported. And I have a friend that had it, I'm telling you, I don't know what to believe. I mean, I think that's the bottom line. I'm not trying to spread stuff, but personal knowledge, right? I've seen people that I work with that have been double vaccinated, been deathly ill, but yet they didn't have it kind of the first time. They just had the vaccine. No symptoms whatsoever. Travels and comes back and gets deathly ill to the point where he's actually in the hospital, which is scary, super scary, right? And then we're talking a healthy, young, he's in his 30s, but it's worried, he's got a wife, a couple of kids, it's scary. So you got to be careful. And like I said, you just have to be careful and do what's best for you. Let's see. Let's see here. There's a story about the guy who God spoke to about the missing little boy sound fishy. Boy missing for 3 days, found naked in 1 hour by this guy. I haven't heard anything about that, Lily, but that sounds a little suspicious, that's for sure. Robin, he had someone ask him about it. He was just answering a viewer's question. He's not claiming to be an expert. No, I agree, Chelsea. No, thanks for clarifying that. I'm not. I'm just telling you anecdotally what I've seen. And like I said, I got vaccinated. I got sick. I don't want to get it again. And, I got to go somewhere with the lovely Miss Kristen here in a couple of weeks. And, it's probably going to be full of people that, it's, a convention type thing. And I'll go and I'll probably be having a mask on with, thousands of people indoors. Outside, probably not so concerned, but indoors, yeah. I don't know. I mean, like I said, I don't want to sound like, I just don't want to get sick. That's my biggest thing. I don't want to get sick. Stacy, I think you're smart for taking your serious question, and I question why people want to risk death, severe lung damage, not to mention a harmful thing. Now, let me tell you, this was my thing early on, and it's completely kind of jokingly. COVID-19 novel virus is still learning. I agree. They're still learning about this stuff. They're changing every day. And listen, what do we know about anything, ladies and gentlemen? For as long as I can been alive, they are saying if you had, issues like of concerns about a heart attack, high blood pressure, take an aspirin a day. And then what do? They go and change it and say, well, if you're taking an aspirin a day, don't stop. Or if your doctor said take an aspirin a day, don't stop. But don't take an aspirin a day. We've basically found out it doesn't really help. But our previous science was based on this science, but we studied it further, and now we're not really sure what it is. It's kind of like when they said Pluto was a planet. I learned it. I memorized it. I probably had questions about it on exams. And then they just pull the rug out from under you and say Pluto's no longer a planet, right? Science is always changing. And, the thing is, yes, science is always changing. Science is supposed to be something that you can repeat, recreate over time, and you get the same result, right? So you got to listen to the science. Don't listen to scientists, okay? Because sometimes they get it wrong. I think that's the thing. And now so many people listen to, well, my scientist says this and my scientist says that. like anything in life, let's look at the data. Don't take anybody's word for it. And by God, don't take some politician's word for anything. I've said this before. I'll say it again, ladies and gentlemen. When I went to school, it was all about question authority. It was all about learning how to think. Now it seems like it's all about learning what to think. And nobody questions anything. It's just, this is the way it is, and this is right. And if you disagree with me, then you must be wrong, and you're an evil, horrible person, and I'm going to cancel you. And it just drives me nuts. Okay? And there are some people that can do or say horrible, horrible things. Don't get me wrong. And, they should be ignored. But you shouldn't take away their right to say things that hurt other people's feelings, even false things. Like I said, we talked about it. What about the flat earthers? That's ridiculous. But do they get banned from YouTube? I don't think so. I don't know. I don't know. You got to think for yourself, ladies and gentlemen. Think for yourself. All right. Hopefully we didn't offend too many people there. But we're answering questions. It's your show. I appreciate everybody taking the time. And, we'll take a look. So, Karen, I had COVID twice and a heart attack within months. I'm 50, no history, 2 heart attacks. Why? Well, Karen, I'm glad you recovered. I wish you speedy health. Like I said, COVID was not fun. I don't wish it on anybody. I really don't. Sit and spin. There's a few reasons why Pluto was downgraded to a dwarf planet, but Pluto will always be a full planet to me. Yes, I agree with you. Sit and spin. Absolutely. Just when if you can't trust your scientists about planetary systems, who can you trust, right? And then they change it, just like aspirin. Now you don't take aspirin once a day to reduce your chances of heart attack. Why? Because they've studied it more. The data. But for one time, that was the right data. And then they looked at it more and said, we got to change it. So just be smart, ladies and gentlemen. Be smart. Do what you need to do to take care of you. And what works for you may not work for somebody else. So don't try to shove it down their throat, because you think you're more right than they are. They may be right for them. Always remember that. Trish, here's to Pluto. That's right. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for watching. Hopefully, if you're a Patreon, you'll follow us over the next hour. We'll talk more about cases and less about bad, horrible diseases. All right. So thank you. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Crime Talk.